Hey, book friends, it's Caitlin and Tishka here. I can't believe it's already March. I'm doing my second ever wrap up monthly video to talk about what I read in February. Somehow I've been on booktube for 10 months now and I just haven't been making any wrap up videos. So I'm going to start doing that because I like kind of getting closure and reflecting on everything that I've read each month. So it looks like I read 5 books in February and they were all different genres, which is cool because I want to try to maybe diversify my reading a little bit and not always be reading such dark thrillers and stuff like that. So it looks like I read two kind of mystery thrillers, some literary fiction, sci-fi, and romance. And I gave all of these ratings between 3 and 5 stars. So I'm just gonna run through pretty quickly and talk about each book and say what I liked and didn't like about it, as well as talking a bit about my March TBR. So let's get into it. The first book I want to talk about is called Kala by Colin Walsh. This is an Irish mystery that kind of caused me a lot of grief. It was the only book I read last week. I liked it a lot. It's a well-written book, but it was just such a challenge, probably the most challenging book that I've read this year. And that's because it was seriously a slow burn. It's 416 pages and we don't find out what happens until the very end, and it's full of Irish slang and colloquialisms that kind of went over my head, but the story is really good. It's about this group of teenagers, and when they were 15, the queen bee of their group, this girl Kala, she went missing. And now I think 20 years later they're all back in their small Irish town, and her remains have been found, and it's very suspicious. And so they're trying to work out what happened to their best friend, and it's told between the past and the present. And sometimes it wasn't clear when we were talking about the past and present, so that kind of gave me a headache. But the characters, I really like when characters are described really deeply, and I felt like I was staring into their souls. I really felt like I knew the characters, and I liked reading through their different point of views. So it's a very good book. It is really dark. And you should look up the trigger warnings because there's a lot of kind of difficult content. But I was really immersed in this story, and Tishka, dedicated to finishing it, even though it was super long. And I feel like I would have given it more stars, maybe if it had been 100 pages shorter. I just feel like it wasn't necessary for it to be so long. So I would give this 3 stars. Let me know if you've read it. The next book I'm going to talk about is a new locked room murder mystery called You Are Fatally Invited by Ande Pliego. I actually did a full review of this already. I got to read this ahead of publication through NetGalley. Okay, so this is a story about this thriller writers retreat on an island hosted by this famous author. And when the authors get there, they find out that it's actually going to be kind of a game of survival. And I don't really want to say anything else because I don't want to ruin the surprise, but yeah, it turns into one of their books come to life, and they have to try to survive all of these deadly games. It's full of all of these thriller tropes, and it's really fun. Lots of banter and a really good reveal at the end. I had fun reading this book, but I don't know, I just don't really get super into murder mysteries. Sometimes they just feel a little bit too cozy or cheesy for me. So while I had fun with this book, I didn't really care that much about the characters. So when they start getting picked off on the island, I was just kind of meh. So I would give this one probably 3.5 stars. Let me know if you've read it. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpmann seriously put me into such a depressed state while reading this book. It's really, really good, but it just made me super kind of sad and existential crisis kind of feeling. But it is a very good book because it's been over a week now that I read it, and I'm still like thinking about it all the time. And I feel like when that happens to me with a book, like it's just like proof that the book is like pretty profound. But that doesn't mean that it makes you feel very good. But this is a story about these 40 women who are like being held hostage in like a bunker, and they don't know like how they got there. They just like woke up there, and they've been there like for years. And our main character, she doesn't even remember her life before being kept in this like bunker, and the story is like told from her perspective. And yeah, it's very bleak, but a really good story. It's kind of like sci-fi dystopian futurist. It just like had like a weird grip on me, and yeah, I'm just going to be thinking about it like kind of like forever. And definitely check it out if you're into like that kind of genre. But yeah, this is not like a feel good book by any means. I would give it like 4 stars. It's time to talk about my two 5-star reads of the month. The first one is called Blob, and I have my own little blob here. But the blob in the story, okay, it's such a weird book. I don't even really know how to describe it. It's just like something you have to see for yourself. If you, especially if you like dark comedy and like women struggling and like trying to find their place in the world, kind of depressed, but getting through life and like laughing along the way. I just like love it, you guys. It's about this girl named Viola. She works at this stupid hotel. Like she hates her job. She's a receptionist, and she's like going through life, and she finds this like blob. Think of like blubber, flubber. She finds a blob outside of this dive bar, and she decides to like take it home. And she's like feeding it, and they're like watching TV together. And like slowly this blob starts transforming like into a man. And it's like turning into like kind of like her dream man from like stuff she watches on TV. So like different parts of him, you know, you have some like George Clooney and some Brad Pitt. And yeah, he's just turning into this man, and it's like a love story, but I don't want to like say too much about what goes on. Um, it's just like really, really good. And that's not like what it's about solely. Like we go back and see like from the past to the present, like how she's like grown up and all of her identity issues, like trying to fit in, and just how she tries to like get through life and like find some kind of like happiness and order in her life. I just loved it. Like I was just laughing the whole time, and I cried a little bit. It just like really got to me. It reminds me a lot of a book that I loved last year called Sad Janet. So if you like dark comedy and literary fiction, like it's all of those kind of vibes. Definitely gave it 5 stars. I think it's probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. So, my other 5-star read of the month is a romance called When We Had Forever by Shaylin Gandhi. This came out in 2024, and wow, this book just blew my mind. I don't know how it like appeared in my Libby, but I'm so glad. Like, I don't know where I got the recommendation from, but this is like a forbidden love, enemies to lovers story with the most amazing plot twist that just blew my mind. It's like very spicy, and if you like, I don't know if this is like a trope, but like stories about twins. It's about this girl, her husband passes away, and she's like grieving, and it turns out that her husband has like this identical twin, and they start kind of like working through their grief together, and he's like a bad boy version of her late husband. Like he has all these like tattoos. He's like a motorcycle guy. And yeah, it's just a really good story. And it's very emotional. And the descriptions are just like really good. And yeah, the twist just like blew my mind. Like 5 stars. I can't wait to read more books by this author. Okay, let's talk about my March TBR. I'm actually currently halfway through an Irish romantic comedy. It's called Morbidly Yours, and get this, just listen. This is what hooked me. It's about this Irish mortician, and he has to get married before his 35th birthday, or else he'll like have to forfeit the family business. And his next door neighbor is this newly arrived a woman from Texas who is a widow, and they start kind of like hanging out. I'm halfway through this book and just like loving it. The descriptions of Ireland are just gorgeous, and it's full of like banter and really, really good puns. Like you have to have like kind of a cheesy sense of humor to like this. I'm just like absolutely loving it so far. I have a couple books on my TBR so far for March. One of them, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm really excited about this book that I just got approved to read ahead of publication on NetGalley. It's called The French Honeymoon. Just look at this cover. It made me think of The Paris Apartment. And then when I read the description, look, The Paris Apartment meets A Simple Favor in an unputdownable thriller about a honeymoon gone terribly wrong. So I like both that book and that movie. So I'm really glad that I get to read this book. I'm just going to read the blurb. Sometimes Paris is a terrible idea. This is not how she imagined it, any of it. Taylor Quinn arrives at her honeymoon suite in the city of love alone, sans suitcase, but with wads of stolen cash. When she catches a glimpse of newlyweds Cassie and Oliver enjoying their happily ever, she can't tear her eyes away, and Cassie makes their antics easy to follow as she reveals every detail of their picture-perfect trip on social media. Taylor's obsession builds as she tracks their every move. This was the kind of life she was supposed to be living. This was the marriage she should have had. This was the honeymoon she dreamed of. The illusion is shattered when she overhears a heated argument between Cassie and Oliver, which reveals that they're not the love-struck couple they pretend to be. But Cassie and Oliver have agendas of their own, and Taylor can't see the danger in getting in the middle of this until it's too late. And now no one will get out of Paris unscathed. That sounds super fun. So I'm going to be reading that. I think it comes out in April. So I'll let you guys know how that ends up being. I'll show you guys what I have checked out on Libby right now for March. I've been looking forward to this book for a while, The Last Murder at the End of the World. This is supposed to be a murder mystery set in the future. I think it's like a dystopian kind of book. I can't wait to read that. Also, Swiped, my friend Book Reviews with Becky just reviewed this and she loved it, and I can't wait to read it. I think I'm going to listen to this while I walk Tishka this week. It's supposed to be about this girl who she's on like a dating app, and I guess like people that she ends up like matching with are ending up dead. So it's supposed to be really fun. Can't wait to read that. And then I saw this book. I love like mystery thrillers set abroad, and this is called The Sicilian Inheritance. It's supposed to be kind of like a mystery set in Sicily, and not gonna lie, the cover just kind of jumped out at me and I checked it out. So we'll see how that is. All right, you guys, that's it for my February reading wrap up. Let me know what you guys are reading right now and if you have any good book recs for me. And Tishka and I will see you next time. Bye.